WCLN 1170 Radio and Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by J.W. Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We Should Know is on the air. I want to thank you for being with us today. My name is J.W. Simmons, your host. Each and every week, the show starts out on Tuesdays at 2:30. It's also a replay at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, Thursday, each and every week on Star Communications Channel 16, also simulcast on WCLN Radio. I also like to remind you, the show's uploaded to Facebook, YouTube, other social media platforms after that week's show airs. So we have a show today that we think you will find not only entertaining but important. It's about school resource officers. And we have two school resource officers with us just as school starts back. How about that for timing? We got James Jones. James, you've been with us before, and your background covers a long trilogy of law enforcement, not only in your life, but in your family's life with your grandfather and your father, Jimmy. I knew Jimmy when he was with the Sheriff's Department, yes, but you got a background where you worked with Topsail Beach, or I believe for a while. I don't know whether you were chasing turtles or what down there, but it didn't take you long to transition up. You ended up in law enforcement and now school resource officer. And you're a first sergeant now. From last time you were on the show, you were not a first sergeant. You're a first sergeant now. So you're moving up in the world.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
And Donald Fisher, you're a sergeant with the Clinton Police Department.
Yes, sir.
And also school resource officer. You've done everything, again, from detective work to patrol sergeant to multiple other tasks, criminal detective. It's amazing when I talk to you guys, the treasure of background and the quality of experience and training you got to bring to the table to these schools. As we open the show today, I want to kind of lay a framework. And that framework is that I believe that one of the most important things that exists today in the world and represents our future is our children. And it's very vital that folks understand how important not only your job is, but at least from my perspective and research and looking at what I've seen on paper, you have done an exemplary job in training and the expertise of courses. One of the things, James, I noticed that you were the 254th graduate of a 400-hour specialized training just to be an SRO.
Yes, sir.
And of course, Donald, you graduated from that same certificate program and you were the 285th person. I don't know how many is in the state now. But let me open this with just a general question. The idea of being a school resource officer, this is something obviously you agreed to do and that apparently you wanted to do. What have you found and what did you expect when you stepped into that job? And this is a question I'm going to try to go to both of you. What did you discover after you got there? And I'm lead with you, James, because you've been on the show before.
I'll be honest with you. It was unlike anything I'd ever thought it was before I went there. And like I said in the past, a lot of people think the school resource officers don't really do much. But they have no idea how much you really do while you're there, because instead of us being on the radio all day, we're on the cell phone where the schools call us, or we're in the school, and everything that happens at that school, we handle it. It doesn't go to the detectives to follow up. I mean, depending on if it's something very major, it would. But whatever crimes occur on that campus, you're the responding officer, the detective, and then finally you close it out by whatever means necessary. But with that being said, a lot of people think that we're there just to charge kids and things like that. But what we do is we use charging as our last resource that we absolutely have to do. We're there to counsel and help kids to get on the right path before they become adults and they could go to the prison system.
Donald, it's clear it takes a pretty strong will to do the kinds of job, because the job you do is face-to-face with kids all day, constantly, face-to-face. What brought you to that, and what keeps you in that role? I mean, have you decided, well, I don't want this anymore, put me back on the road?
No, when I was a detective, I kind of helped out with a lot of our community-oriented policing strategies. And in doing that, I ran into a bunch of juveniles that obviously needed assistance. And that's what led me ultimately to become a school resource officer. I realized if you can impact these juveniles at a younger age, maybe we'll have less legal issues with them when they get older. Yeah. And that's the one thing I've noticed. We do a lot of building relationships. We do a lot of talking to juveniles. Like you said, we handle everything from beginning to end within the school. We do a lot of scheduling conflicts for ball games and stuff like that, getting coverage for security for ball games and things. You do a lot more with the juveniles than you do the administration, honestly. And I think that's what the perception is. We just sit in the office and talk with guidance counselors or the administration, and then when the kid acts up, we charge them. That's the last thing we do. There's multiple resources that are available in this county that both me and Deputy Jones are aware of that we refer kids to all the time to keep them out of the juvenile justice system.
One of the things that kind of follow-up observation here as we're talking about this subject is that there's an expectation with school resource officers. And you nailed it a while ago, I think, where I'm going here, James, is that it's not just to find somebody, arrest somebody. It's not just an enforcement issue. What do you want parents to know about your school resource officers, you as a school resource officer? Both of you have supervision over other folks. What do they need to know? What about that word trust? If somebody comes to you and they got an issue or somebody's got some concern, whether it's a parent, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a student, is there a certain sense of confidentiality that you will help them through a situation rather than, oh yeah, if you tell him, you just told him you got drugs, he's gonna arrest you and throw you in jail? What do you want them to see that is sometimes gets mixed up with the traditional law enforcement role?
Because, first off, if you talk to any kid that's had interaction with their school resource officer, the first thing they're gonna say is just like on a Monday morning, the kids would get a speeding ticket or something. Well, the first thing at the high school, where did they end up? They ended up in Jones's office. Hey, I got this ticket. And then, as you talk to them, so I'll talk with them and, I'll look at the ticket and then I'll give them options, maybe you could take driving school and, and that would keep your insurance from going up. But then what they always say is, that cop, he didn't act like you did. He don't act like you do. Because, and it's like I explained to him too also, I've watched you grow up. I know who you are. However, that officer that walked up to your door, he don't know you like that. So, but that's one of the first things they say. They say, he didn't talk to me the way you talk to me. But see, that's our whole purpose. Our whole purpose of being in the schools is to show the human qualities of law enforcement and also build relationships and rapport with students, staff, and their families. Because down there at Union, I know more about some of the families than I know about my own, where I've had so many dealings over the years because I've been down there so long and been in the community that I've watched the children. Now I'm on to some of the children's children, and like I said, I've always tried to do everything I can to help somebody. Now, at some point in some situations, our hands are tied where there's nothing else we could do but send them to the juvenile system. However, what I explain to the parents is, you see this as a punishment. However, the whole purpose of the juvenile system is to get this child on the right path before they become now 18 years old and they could go straight to prison. That's the whole purpose of it. But, we're there to help. We're also there, if anything bad happens as far as somebody on campus, and trying to attack the kids. But when things like that's not going on, our biggest purpose is to help these kids grow up to be productive citizens in Sampson County.
Donald, we got two different systems. Of course, you cover the city of Clinton, the city schools. James has got a lot of area here. Sampson County is 72 miles, and you got a lot more schools. But when you look at the difference, is the complexity of issues very similar to what James talked about in dealing with issues and problematic issues for students?
The best way I can explain it is Clinton is just a smaller version of Sampson County as a whole. So we have the same issues. We might not have as many of this particular incident as the county may have. Whereas the county might have 5 incidents in relation to whatever. We may only have 1 or 2 in a school year. So we have the same issues. It's just on a smaller scale because we're dealing with a smaller population, obviously. Building off what Deputy Jones said about that juvenile saying that you act different than the other officer. A big thing in choosing a school resource officer, you have to have the right demeanor for this job. You can't be the hard-nosed officer that a lot of young guys coming into the profession want to be on the streets. You need the experience that me and Deputy Jones have to be able to relate to them on a human level, like you said.
As well as the demeanor.
Yeah, the demeanor. I mean, it's a big difference to be able to just talk to somebody and handle something real easy than have to go in there and tell people what to do. There's a big difference.
Does tolerance come into this conversation here to be able to tolerate a certain amount of things without immediately going to a lockdown or a shutdown situation?
Without a doubt. You have to be a lot more tolerant as a school resource officer because you're dealing with juveniles. You can't lock up every juvenile you deal with. You have to be able to de-escalate the situation, give them time to talk. If you let them talk and get things off their chest, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have a lot better outcome.
Exactly right.
Whereas dealing with adults, it's different. You let them talk to a certain extent, but when you're on the road, you have priorities that you have to meet, and so the outcome can be different.
We're going to take a break and come back for a second segment, but as we do that, I want to kind of let folks know when we come back, I'm going to pose a question to you guys that I think they'll want to hear is, what do you see when you walk on that campus, wherever that school may be? What kind of things are you seeing? What do you look for on that campus? Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. Stay tuned. We Should Know's on there. We're talking about school resource officers.
If you run a business, you need sales. To get sales, you need customers. To get customers, you need exposure. Let our team of experts craft and produce the perfect video ad to reach your intended audience while making the most of your advertising dollars. Call 1-800-706-6538 or visit starcom.net to contact our Star Communications production team and get your business moving to the next level.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on there. We're talking about school resource business. We're talking about some of the most important things that we count as critically important in our society, and that's our children. And we're talking with Sergeant. I'll start with you, Donald, Sergeant Donald Fisher, and also we're talking with First Sergeant James Jones. James, on the question that I posed going to break and coming back, when a school resource officer walks onto the campus in the morning, I don't know what time you guys get there. I'm assuming it's well before the students get there. Let's pick it up from there and just give us your rendition, because you've not only been a school resource officer, you're now responsible for school resource officers in this county,
yes,
which
sir.
is huge. So just tell us what goes through your mind as a school resource officer. Are you anticipating? Are you looking for certain things? Is there something in the physical environment that you're scanning for? Because behind those eyes, you're looking for something. Tell us what you're seeing.
Well, typically what I would do now with each campus is very unique in where the officer would be and what that individual officer focuses on. But typically, like me, what I would focus on a lot of times is our parent drop off and pickup line, because you have all these cars coming in. So I'm watching that. While I'm also doing that, I'm going through my reports to look to see what happened last night, or if it's a Monday, what happened over the weekend, to see if there was anything that could roll over into school that morning. And, because, like I said, once you get in there and you know your student population, once you see a last name, you'll know that's connected to one of my students. So I kind of run through the reports every morning to see what happened the night before. And kind of see if there was something, like a bad domestic at the house the night before. So if that was the case, that kid, if they're there that day, might be a little bit upset or something. And, and if I find out information like that, I'll pass it on to the counselor and let them know. And then, kind of try to make it a point for me to get around to see how that kid acts that day, acts that morning, see how they are that morning. And, with all the stuff going on, I mean, because, I think back when I was a child, I thought that the one thing in whatever is going on in their life at that point is the worst thing possible ever in their life. Until they grow up, and then they figure out that was nothing, But I mean, somebody says one bad word about them, and their life is over.
Yeah.
However, as we grow up and we mature, we see that was just childish stuff that we were worrying about. And I go through these things talking to my kids all the time. With my daughter, and with girls, there's always drama of some sort. She'll say, "This one said this," or "This one said that." I say, "Hey, Avery, just chill out." I said, "It's going to pass. Don't worry about it." I said, "In 6 months, you'll never remember this." I said, "You think you will," but I said, "You won't." But typically, like every morning, I make it a point to go through the reports because I can see what happened out in the county. And, and if I see something at another school district, I would call that SRO and say, "Hey, I was looking through the reports and I saw this, this might be something you want to look at in case it's one of your kids." Make sure he's seeing what you're seeing. Right. And I mean, and you just kind of watch the kids and watch, because the biggest thing you would pick up and drop off, what always worries me is somebody getting ran over with whatever age of kids they are, because the older kids know to look for cars. However, once they get in their world of talking, they don't pay attention at the cars. And then from there, once you make it into school, you kind of do your loop and kind of see how everybody's reacting. And 90% of the times when you walk in the front office, you can tell the ones that's having a bad day because they're already sitting up front. Whether that be if they got in trouble or whether they're just having some type of issue, that they need to talk to somebody about. And I always make it a point, whoever's sitting in the office, "Hey, how you doing today?" And, because people don't realize, I mean, just saying hello to somebody could change their outlook of the day already. So that's what
do you say when you walk in?
One of the first things I do is I typically do a loop of the entire school just to make sure no one's out of place, no one's anywhere they're not supposed to be. And then luckily with the school I'm at, I'm in a position where I can be between, I can see the car riders and the buses all at the same time. Along with that, I can also view the student parking lot as well. So I'm fortunate enough to be able to simultaneously check on all the different areas. I also check the reports like Sergeant Jones said, just because Clinton is so small, it is easy to know kids by last name. So just being able to identify an issue that may come up, once again, notifying counselors, letting them know what's going on. I don't do it the same way every day. I don't want to get in a routine, but it is something that I regularly do. Once kids get in the building, you make your first round and you make sure everything's in place. Because sometimes you might have kids, they might go to the room and then step out and be out in the hallway, just trying to decompress something that happened overnight. And it could be something minor, like you said. And just your simple, 1 minute conversation with them could help them get through the rest of their day.
How many resource officers does Clinton City Schools have?
Right now we have 2. The Clinton Police Department and Clinton City School System is working together, getting paperwork together to apply for a 3rd through a grant program.
Will 3, once you get that 3rd one on, is that adequate, or do you need more school resource officers?
I think Clinton Police Department and Clinton City Schools is doing great with what we have. More personnel in any division is always a benefit, though. I think with the personnel we have at this time, we're doing a sufficient job. We're doing the best job we can, working with the school system and working with the PD, making sure our kids are as safe as possible. But the more personnel we get would only benefit us more.
Have you noticed, now both you guys have been in this business for some time, have you noticed a direct, and you alluded to this, James, a direct relationship as to what may be happening at home and that child showing up at school and all of a sudden you've got that issue, whatever that issue may be.
Right.
How hard is it for you to not only deal with that, but to correct that going forward? Because at the point in time you see that and you understand that's going on, that's something that's happening off campus.
Right.
Now it's being brought to campus, and that could, some of these shootings we've had, obviously they started off campus.
Yes, sir.
So how do you deal with that process? Is there an investigatory piece that you reach out to other officers out there? Do you ever pick the phone up and try to reach out to parents? Do you let the school counselor handle that? How does that work? And it may work different for both of y'all.
Yeah. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll go through the school counselor, because, with the school counselor, the kids definitely feel comfortable talking with them. And, and kids feel comfortable talking with me once they get to know me. However, with something going on at home, sometimes they're not going to divulge information to an officer that they would to a counselor, or a school employee, because in their mind, they think, well, if I talk with him, they might go get my parents or something like that. Now, with that being said, as long as there's nothing illegal happening to that child, nothing against the law or anything, I wouldn't, at that point, I wouldn't, get involved or anything. However, and talking with the counselor as well as talking with us, that's confidential, as long as there's not been any laws broken or the fact that the child might hurt themselves or somebody else. From that point, once those two things happen, then we have to take it in a different direction as far as, we can't keep the confidentiality. But, with that being said, I mean, that's the whole purpose of us building rapport with our students, so that they will come and talk with us about things, and we can give them advice and kind of point them in the right direction.
Donna, you wanted to add to that?
Building off what he said, I don't believe that we correct the issue per se, us individually. We provide the resources for the juvenile to work through the issue, if it's non-criminal, and no one's personal safety is at risk. We provide them the resources to reach out and develop a way to, we help them develop conflict resolution on their own. That way, as they grow older, they can practice some more and get better, and hopefully we won't have any dealings with them as adults, as far as when it comes to legal matters. Building off what you said about things starting at home, that can develop like bullying or stuff that happens outside of school. Right. We deal with that a lot in the school system. There's nothing we can do. Yeah, there's nothing we can do about what happens over social media and things at home. But, that does affect our juveniles, their mental health, their self-esteem and things like that. Once again, that's what the resources are for. But it's also something that, we can reach out to parents in that situation. Like, listen, these are some things you need to look for. If you notice anything unusual, these behaviors, emotional sensitivity in any certain issue, let somebody know. These are some resources you can contact. You can contact me, and I can help escalate anything as much as I can. And that's to prevent any of what you talked about with the shootings and stuff. There's a mental health background to just about all of them. And
monitor their social media. Yeah. Because, there's a lot of parents that have no idea what their kids are doing on these phones and these different social media websites. I'm a firm believer that, we can think our children are the greatest in the world. However, if we're not sitting right there beside them, we don't know what they're doing. And it's like I tell people, if you don't raise your children and you give them the attention they want, somebody will, and it might not be the attention you want them to be getting.
Building off social media, there's age restrictions on social media that are completely ignored. All they got to do is they were born 4 or 5 years earlier, and they can be 10, 11 years old and be on social media. That's an issue.
At age 17.
They shouldn't have social media access.
I want to follow up on that, because that was one of the things I wanted to cover was the social media piece. But when we come back from this break, I want to dig into that a little bit deeper and see what parents need to know and what they need to be doing, and things that you guys can do from your position, because that social media realm is a conversation that we could probably have a mini course in right here. So we'll be back in a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We're talking about issues related to what's these social media platforms. We're talking about school resource officers. We'll be back in a moment. Call a friend. Stay tuned.
At home or away, knowing who is at your door is priceless. Star Communications is here to help with its doorbell security camera by Skybell. Live viewing and two-way audio equips you with the ability to always see and greet anyone that shows up at your door. If this is the kind of confidence you are looking for, call Star Communications today at 1-800-706-6538 to learn more about this intelligent security that you can always depend on.
Welcome back. We Should Know is on there. Thank you for being with us. My name is J.W. Simmons, your host. We're talking about school resource officers, children in schools, things you need to know. We're talking with James Jones, who has oversight of all the SROs in Sampson County, First Sergeant here with the Sheriff's Department. We're also talking here with Donald Fisher, who is a sergeant and has oversight of the whole operation in the city school system. Donald, I want to start with you. When we went to break, we're talking about a bit about social media and its impact on not only behavior, but information and maybe ways that parents and you guys can help students utilize that platform. Is social media not only a problem, but is it a benefit? Let's just have an open discussion about what you see and what folks need to know about social media platforms and children, whether they're age 8 or whether they're age 18. I'll start with you.
Social media as a whole, it has pros and cons. I know the school systems, the police department, we use social media all the time to get messages, information out to the public. The schools use it to get information about school events out to parents and the kids and stuff like that. But some of our juveniles use it inappropriately. There are a lot of good things on social media for juveniles, staying in contact with friends that move away, things like that. But it can be bad. Juveniles don't think about the future so much as the now. And things they post on social media today can affect them in the future. I mean, there's more and more places you go to get hired. One of the first things they look at is the social media, your history. And if you have gang signs and firearms and things like that on your social media photos. Mm-hmm. Yeah, provocative photos and things like that. That could potentially lead you to not getting a job. Yeah. So
or getting into colleges also.
Yeah, getting into
colleges also search social media on their the people applying for those too.
That's exactly right. So along with the communication amongst students, just the image they portray on social media can have a negative effect in society as well, not just among their peers.
Do you monitor social media platforms occasionally to just kind of see what's going on out there?
I do what I can. With the school system, they block a lot of social media access through their devices and through their networks and stuff. So if I'm off, I will check social media and things like that especially if I know a kid's having problems and I know they have a social media account. I don't befriend any students or anything like that on social media. That's a no-no.
Right.
But if I can look at their social media and learn anything about them to help them in the future, I do.
James, are we monitoring? Should we be doing more in looking at social media platforms?
Well, it would be great for us to do more, without a shadow of a doubt. However, I mean, I can make a profile today and then make another one tomorrow with a different name. I could have 500 profiles. How do you kind of follow them all? Mm-hmm. But what we really do depend on in the schools is where the kids are friends. If they see something about a kid talking about suicide or something like that, they will report it. Mm-hmm. And I mean, and so then once we get that report, then we act on it with the school counselors and things like that. And we start talking to the kids and then make the parents aware that they're posting this type of stuff online. And then, depending upon how they answer the questions for the school system's protective program that they have, the crisis intervention program. Then it would depend on whether they would need to go to the hospital to do an IVC, where they could get the professional help or follow up with just a counselor, and some of them may already have a counselor. But once that is brought to our attention, as I say, as officers or the school system. I mean, sometimes we might not even be involved in that, you know, because once it's brought to the school's attention, it's handled then. Because, you know, the last thing any of us would want to do is know about something and not do anything about it, and then a kid killed himself that night, you know, and we knew that there was something going on. But like I said, I mean, you know, there is so much that goes on this social media, and following up on what he said, you know, teaching BLET and things like that. That's what I tell the class. When I applied for a job, there was no such thing as checking me on Facebook or anything like that, because it wasn't around. However, now when you go to apply for those jobs, that's the first thing those employers are going to do. And if you portray yourself online as one way, but you're not that way, they're going to take you as the way you portray yourself online. You know, as far as, like he said, following up on the gang signs, the showing pictures of drugs or guns or things like that. People are going to judge you before they ever meet you. And with that being said, I mean, they don't realize that those pictures are forever. I mean, you can take it down, but somebody has screenshotted it and they've got it on their phone or something like that. And, you know, with students, they don't think about the future, which when I was young, I didn't think about tomorrow either. So what you put out there today could affect you down the road.
Donald, one of the things in this conversation that's important that James just alluded to is this idea that this is a concrete, solid block of just information that could be extremely beneficial to you guys. Is there a need to have somebody that does nothing but monitor those platforms?
I think it don't matter how much we monitor a platform, any platform of social media, there's always going to be something we miss, because people will delete things, and you know, they do have, like Sergeant Jones said, you know, several different accounts. Most of the time, these juveniles, their account names aren't even their names. It's not like an adult you may see who has a profile and it's their name. It may be, I don't know, Cash Eddie or something like that. Right, you know, as their account name. So I think it would be beneficial, but is it necessary at this time? Potentially. That's for higher powers than me to decide, honestly.
And that would be a full-time job.
Yeah, it would be a full-time job.
That would be one person, I mean, scouring all these different profiles and things like that. And just like he said, I mean, they might have no pictures, so you can't identify the person, but the kid will say, this is such and such, you know, but how do I know that's who it is? Because I could present, and it's like I explained to kids before. I said, you know, I can make a profile and present myself as a 14-year-old boy, you know, and you'd be talking to a 40-year-old man, you know, because that's the other thing that I educate them about is the dangers of not knowing who you're talking to out there, because anybody can be whoever they want to be online.
What platform concerns you guys more than the other? Instagram, TikTok? Is there one that's more provocative that you see stuff on?
In my opinion, Snapchat is probably the worst, because technically things are instantly deleted
in their mind.
Yeah, in their mind.
They think it's there for 10 seconds and it's gone.
They think it's instantly deleted, but you know, whoever they're sending things to, they can screenshot it. Now, yes, they get notifications that it's been screenshotted, but once it's screenshotted, what can you do? Yeah. You know, once somebody takes a picture of it on their phone, there's nothing you can do about it. And obviously through search warrants and things, we can get material so far, you know, at a certain distance in the past. But for juveniles, they think that, as soon as I send it and they open it, it's gone. Yeah.
But once I've screenshotted it, I can do with it what I want.
You can share it on Instagram.
Share it anywhere.
Yeah, anywhere.
You know, and
so you can take it to another platform.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I mean, once I have it saved to my phone, I can do whatever I want with it. Use it for blackmail, you know, and these kids don't think about that. Because, I mean, you know, and I didn't think about things when I was 13 or 14 the way I think about things now. And it all comes with, like I said, growing up and getting mature.
What does parents need to, in this conversation, what would you want parents to know that's got children, that they have got them a phone, and they may have got them that phone for security reasons, so if they need them, they can call them. But what do parents need to know?
parents need to make sure that their child is old enough, according to that social media platform's guidelines, to have an account. First of all, if they're 10 years old, they don't need a social media account. They need to monitor any social media that they may have. There are apps and things you can put on phones now to where a parent can look at what the kid's looking at, like live.
Yeah.
So it's kind of simultaneously viewed?
Yeah. Okay. There's apps where you can pull up and see a list of the people that they've called. I mean, there's all different types of things you can do to monitor their activity on them cell phones, and that's the biggest thing, monitoring what your child is doing.
There's other apps called like Bark. I think Bark is one that's put out there for parents to know what their kids are doing and things like that. They'd have to research and see what would fit their needs better. The parent for the child.
Is there an age that's too young to even have a phone? Somebody mentioned that to me when they knew you guys were going to be on it. They said, well, ask them about what age I need to let my children.
Well, I tell you what, my wife is talking about kids in second grade and having them, number one, phones are expensive.
Yes.
I'm not going to put that responsibility in a, 8-year-old's hand. But I mean, now I'm going to be honest with you. Now it's like everybody has a phone.
It's almost expected, isn't it?
Right. And I mean, I can totally understand when you're away from your kids, once they get driving and they're not with you and things like that. But, when they're 7 or 8 years old, some do have them. However, I mean, I don't see the need in it myself because they're going to be with me or they're going to be at school.
Yeah. I don't see the need until they no longer need me for transportation, personally.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to pose a question for you guys to be thinking about, and for the viewers out there and listeners to be thinking about. You as a school resource officer, the people that work with you or under your supervision. We heard a lot about Uvalde and I'll say slow response in that situation. We've heard a lot about Parkland in Florida, in which the school resource officer was there, but yet response was slow. I'm going to kind of pose the question for discussion. Are you ready to take that level of assault and to respond to it, and how confident are you in the people you work with? And we'll be back in a moment to discuss that question with people that do this job each and every day. Ladies and gentlemen, call a friend. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment.
To get the most out of your electronic devices, you need a strong internet connection and a protected home Wi-Fi network. You need high-speed internet from Star. Star has the fastest, most affordable high-speed internet service available for all your devices. We have no long-term contracts or high-pressure sales. Our service speaks for itself, and switching is hassle-free. We take care of everything with free installation from a local company. High-speed internet from Star. Internet at the speed of life.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being with us today. We're coming up on our last segment here on We Should Know. I'm J.W. Simmons, the host of the show. I want to take a quick moment to just pause for a second and thank each and every one of those folks out there that turned out to support Caitlin Emanuel at a benefit that we recently had. Helping Hands was the lead agency in that. Chris Sessum's thumbs up for all the work you and all those volunteers have done to make this happen. Also, the Grateful Shed, a cooking group out of Salemburg, and the efforts that you put forth to make that happen. This event was extremely successful. A number of folks at the radio station, Robert Stroud, Wayne Weeks, and others helped promote that. And again, thumbs up and thank you for all the hard work you've done on that. I also want to thank everybody for continuing to reach out to us on weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. weshouldknowedu@gmail.com to give us your thoughts, opinions, suggestions, other information. We can use any of it to kind of improve the show, people you want to hear from. These are critical things for us that allow us to continue to go forward. Again, stay tuned each and every week on Tuesdays at 2:30 with the replays at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, Thursday on cable TV, and it's simulcast at 2:30 on Star Communications Cable TV and WCLN Radio as well. So thank you for being with us. I want to segue back to what we're talking about today, which is school resource officers. And again, as we started the show, we'll kind of end it with this idea, the most critical thing that a lot of us say is the most important to us right now is our children, because they not only represent who we are, but they represent our future. And you guys look at them every day in ways that we can't imagine. We just talked about social media platforms and those kinds of things. When we look back at the number for over 20 years, the number of school shootings that's been involved here in this country, and we can take it back to Parkland, we can go further back and look, we could go over and analyze all of them. But I want to just kind of look at a couple of recent ones. Parkland, we'll look at also Uvalde. Uvalde just struck a chord with everybody of the slowness of response. Now, having talked to you off camera, I know you guys have been through extensive training. You've been through active shooter training. You've been through extended training. Talk to us about what you saw and what troubled you more regarding this Uvalde school shooting, because I know you've pulled it apart thread by thread, because that's kind of what you could picture yourself being there. The active shooter training you've been through tells you to go to that shooting.
Yes, if you
These
hear the
guys,
shots.
it was over an hour, right. and still nothing happened. Are you and are your folks that work under your purview, what is your sense about taking care of the situation? And I'll start with.
All right. Well, you know, I mean, like you said before, when we hear the shots fired, we are trained to go to where the shots are fired. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and talk about what was done right or what was done wrong. I wasn't there.
Right.
You know, all I can say is what our officers are trained, and we're trained that if there's active shots fired, we're supposed to go to it. Whether you're by yourself, I mean, it's not waiting until, 4 or 5 more come. If our school resource officer is on that campus, into school or outside the school, he hears those shots, he's going to call it in. Everybody's going to be en route to him that's around within maybe, and if it hadn't be at Union, it could be some from Duplin County coming. All law enforcement are going to be. Highway Patrol, Wildlife, Clinton PD would come out of Clinton. Yeah. Every officer is going to go to that scene that can. But what they're trained to do is they're trained to go in and try to eliminate the threat, because while that shooting is happening, that's a kid dying. Every shot fired is a kid dying. And there's been many of days that I've sat and thought, what if? And that's what I kind of I've done through my whole career, is run what if scenarios through my mind. What if this happened? What am I going to do? And I look over all these kids as if they're mine, because whatever school I'm at, I'm there to keep these kids safe. So, it's like I told people, sometimes I have, 2,000 kids. I mean, back when I ran the district all by myself, before we got the help that we have now, I had 4 schools and I just kind of run around and put out fires. However, I looked at all those kids as if that was my kid. And, with me, I have kids in school. He has kids in school. I wouldn't want somebody to stand outside while my kid was possibly getting shot. So, like I said, with all those scenarios, I've made up my mind. I'm just going to make my peace with the Lord, and I'm going to have to go in. I'm not going to stand outside and wait. But that's what they're trained to do. Now, with that being said, we can sit here while everything's cool, calm, and collected, and we can say exactly what we're going to do. However, when that stress starts coming on you, nobody really knows how their body's going to react until that you're in that situation. So, that's why I'm not going to say, what was. It sounded like there was a lot of communication errors. A lot of failure to communicate in Uvalde, because, and the same thing with Parkland.
Yeah, Parkland, same thing.
They were told not to go in, and they were told, there was a lot of failure to communicate. However, we learned from Columbine back in 1999 that the surround and detain, contain and surround, that doesn't work. Because while we're standing outside, there are actively people dying.
That was over 20 years ago.
Right. And that was my senior year of high school.
Yeah.
And I'd never heard of anything like that. It's like when I went to school, we never had code reds or anything like that. I had to learn about all that the kids know about now once I went back into the school. However, and then so we learned from that, and we went to the active shooter training. where you're going to where the shots are fired. But you see in the last 2 major incidents,
that hesitancy.
It stopped. And like I said, I mean, you know, unless you're there, I mean, it's hard to say what you would do. You can sit here and think what you're going to do every day, but I'm human, and everybody's human. And depending on who that is, they might hesitate a second or two, or you know, or a little longer. Who knows if that much stress goes on to a person that they just completely
not pass out.
Yeah. I mean, you know, just completely shut down. And
well,
we hope. But the goal is to react the way you train. So that's why we continue to train, because the purpose of continuous training is for you to react in that way in the situation and not even think about it.
Don, I'll get your thoughts on that too. And James kind of pointed out something that was interesting as well, is that this unilateral kind of approach where a bunch of folks is going to respond to it. But what we know is in that critical first few seconds, not even a minute, going in there alone, or if there's 2 or there was 1, is critical. Is this something you've talked about with the folks that work with you as school resource officers?
Oh, without a doubt. All of our school resource officers, all of our officers at Clinton PD, we're all trained, like you said, to respond immediately, whether we're by ourselves or not. Along with Sergeant Jones, you know, I'm not going to talk about any other incident because I wasn't there. I wasn't handling the situation. But I can say that at Clinton Police Department, we train yearly, annually. We're attempting to try to do it biannually to the rapid deployment, I think is what they're calling it now. Rapid deployment in those situations. We've recently just completed, along with the Sheriff's Office, virtual reality training in those situations, and what is called simunitions. It's like a sophisticated paintball situation where you get live feedback on the decision you make, meaning you get shot with whatever instrument they're using.
As real as you can get without drawing blood.
Exactly. And, you know, it really puts things in perspective for you. It makes you remember the wrong decisions you made, makes you remember the right decisions you made. And I think us doing that more frequently in law enforcement, not just with the city, but with the county, across the nation, will benefit in every situation we encounter, not just an active shooter situation, you know, situations on the road and things like that. I think it would be beneficial.
And you, the county recently, in fact, right after Uvalde, had a situation involving a call about something going on in the Hopton district.
Yes, sir.
And I mean, the response was unbelievable. I mean,
right.
From Newton Grove PD, I was up there. I mean, there was all the departments rolled in.
Right. And you know, that happened the last week of school, and we were doing everything we can to have an officer on every campus. And the problem is, I mean, you know, it's not like you have a tree that you could pluck a deputy from.
That's right.
You know, I mean, we're shorthanded now as it is. However, I mean, it's like we had to pull some officers from their normal duties just to have over there at the campus. And my eventual goal is to, what I hope to see is 1 officer per school is what I eventually hope to see. And then we wouldn't have to borrow anybody. You know, we might have to borrow some extra to have extra help, but we would at least have 1 per campus. But following up on like this shooting, one of my officers, he just took SRO survival this week. He was actually with Scott Grantham over at the Justice Academy teaching that. And they talked about solo active shooters, you know, showing up by yourself. And then they went through another round of simunitions training. He took that Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So all of our SROs are scheduled to take that.
I want to thank both of you for being with us today. We're coming up on closure here quicker than I anticipated, but this has been a lively discussion. I know there's going to be some follow-up comments that I get via email. You mentioned Scott Grantham. Scott was supposed to be here with us today. He's actually the instructor developer for school resource training here in the state of North Carolina. We certainly thank all of you and people like you for what you do, and we very much appreciate your service to this county, to this city, to the citizens here. And if there's questions that folks have, I'm sure if they reach out to you, just knowing y'all for some time, you'd be glad to talk to them about it personally. It's better to reach out now than to wait for the moment. Thanks again for being with us. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us. We look forward to seeing you again next week right here. And as things go forward, these subjects get more complex and we bring in the people that you need to know about. May God bless. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host J.W. Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.